Hello and welcome to the A&P. I am Alex Johansson and my co-host Patrick McCallum. Patrick,
Hello, everyone. How are you getting on?
we're having logical discussions about the state of the world. Let's get into it, brother. Hey, Patrick, how you doing, bud?
Not too bad at all, buddy. So what have you for me today?
Salopianhistorian,
Okay.
4-1, the history behind Israel-Gaza war, the Israel-Gaza conflict, it goes back quite a long way, and you as my history buff friend, I figured you'd be kind of interested in this. And we have Doubting Thomas in the background, grabbing information and updating us and making sure that we are verified, true, and correct in statements that we make. If we are wrong, Doubting Thomas has no problem telling us about our wrongness. He's really good. Guys. Absolutely. The finger pointer is among us. Be careful, Patrick. All right, so we say we let this man cook.
Man has to say.
Let's do it.
Doesn't belong to them. And why do Palestinians live under military occupation 75 years after the conflict began? To understand what's happening now, you need to understand how it started. For centuries, the land that we know as Israel and Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire. Jews, Muslims, and Christians lived there, often uneasily but side by side. That changed in World War I, and in 1917, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration.
All right, so the Balfour Declaration, here it is. Dear Lord Rothschild, I have a much pleasure in conveying to you on behalf of His Majesty's government the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionists, aspirations which has been submitted to and approved by the cabinet. So this is the document that establishes that there will be a Jewish state.
Yes, this was after the treaty of, this was during the time of the Treaty of Versailles, after World War I.
Correct.
So if people want to look that up, it's really, really interesting time. It's where a lot of the modern conflicts that we know right now, say the Vietnam War even, South Korea, so on, it's where a lot of our modern conflicts stem from that particular treaty, where the world was literally carved up among the superpowers at the time.
Right. So they didn't care a lot for the lines they put down and who was on which side of which line. For instance, southern Syria has about 1 million Druze, right?
Yeah.
Had that line been a little further north, then that issue would really not be as much of an issue.
You have to remember, these maps were redrawn in Versailles, hence the reason why it's Treaty of Versailles. So,
right, and then
if you think about it,
go ahead.
The Russians themselves got the Crimea at that time.
Right.
Well, leased for the 200-year lease, the famous Crimea War. Right. After the Crimea War, they were allowed to stay there up to a certain date, but the Russians just kind of stayed.
Right. 1948 also did a lot of wonky things. I'm sure he's going to get to that as well. But there was just lots of redrawing with not a lot of consideration for what would be good for the people in those spaces.
But you have to remember the time period. The time period is the very early 19th century.
Right, and getting messages back and forth was not as effective or as efficient as it is today either.
I think people, especially the British Empire, small part of the French Empire at the time, after World War I, had a not so kind view of people outside their own country. It's probably the most polite way I could put it. A very little understanding, probably the other way of saying it.
They didn't take the time to learn about the people and the places where they were affecting the decisions.
No. They couldn't do it. They had a very poor opinion, as I well know from my own country.
Right. You've been mistreated by the English as well.
Yes.
It happens, I suppose, all over the world.
Yeah. Look, every empire, as I say, every empire has its own bloody history, as they say. The Portuguese themselves as well kind of lost quite a lot of their empire after the Treaty of Versailles as well.
Correct. All right, let's see what we got next.
Promising a national homeland to the Jewish people in Palestine. But at the same time, Britain had also offered independence to the Arab people if they fought against the Ottoman Empire in World War I, which they did. That's colonialism 101. Promise everyone everything, and then divide and rule.
Does that sound correct, Patrick?
Yes. The Arabs were promised their own homeland as well as the Jewish people promised their own homeland. They kind of promised the sun, moon, and stars to everybody.
Right. Thus the creation of Transjordan and some of the issues that hold today with the West Bank and such. Yeah. Right.
Hence the reason why when the British were stretched across they were stretched across the entire globe at the time. And the Ottoman Empire, people forget how big it actually was.
It was massive.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It was a massive empire. They tried the Gallipoli landings to take out the Ottomans during the middle of World War One, which ended in complete and utter disaster in a lot of ways. That was one of Churchill's great plans for ending the Ottoman Empire.
Oops.
And did not end very well. Did not end well at all whatsoever for the Allies.
Right. Define that for the audience so they know what you're talking about.
And the battle, so what happened was they were trying to find a way of coming into Gallipoli. And the idea was landing Gallipoli and cut the Ottoman Empire in two with support of their allies.
Mm-hmm.
But the Ottomans reacted a lot faster than the British realized.
Right.
And they got pinned down in Gallipoli for a long time. It cost them thousands of lives. It was a massive disaster. And it was Churchill. Churchill was Lord First Admiral at the time. It was his brainchild.
Right.
Which is one of many mistakes that Churchill did during World War One as in that particular position as a military leader. He wasn't. They were trying to find a quick way to finish the Ottomans, but it worked out badly. It's probably a short note.
And part of the problem in World War One, the local commanders weren't allowed to generate their own operations and guide and control them. The politicians hammerlocked it and said, "You will do it this way." At which point we end up with, trench warfare and a lot of horrific decisions, the use of gas and all those kinds of things. So
it was a massive disaster. But as you rightly said, the commanders on the ground had very little autonomy to act on their own.
Right.
They were given their battle plans, they were given their battle orders, and that was that until the communications from, say, Britain all the way on, as you know, to the Turkish coast there. That was a massive communication hold up there.
Well, and the commanders on the ground didn't have control of the battle space. They just didn't have the control.
No. And they were very ill prepared as well to deal with the Ottomans, because the Ottomans, all they had to do was just sit back and just shell you as you're coming on the beach.
Yeah.
That's literally what they did.
Yep. It's like an early version of Normandy. Only the Western nations didn't do so good on that one. All right, here we go. So behind the scenes, he says.
Behind the scenes, Britain and France had already secretly carved up the Arab world. It was called the Sykes-Picot Agreement, and it split the Arab world into zones of influence: British Palestine, French Syria, Lebanon, and puppet states like Iraq and Transjordan. These new borders weren't drawn with culture or religion or language in mind.
Sunnis in the space of Shiites with Druze as well as Jews. There wasn't nothing conciliatory about it. Yeah, there's nothing conciliatory about it at all.
They literally sat down a map and a Sharpie and just drew borders. This is literally what they did after Treaty of Versailles, across the globe, not just.
Right. Well, and then the problem with that is they become recognized international borders, right? And that's one of the issues that's going on, like in Israel right now. Gaza cannot be occupied by Israel because it is considered by international convent to be a part of Israel. The West Bank the same way. So they cannot occupy it. It's like Crimea and the Donbass is currently occupied by Russia because per international contract, that is Ukrainian land, right?
Yes.
So that's why some of the terminology, Palestine's occupied, Gaza is part of Israel.
But the problem is, as he traces it back there, rightly so, is there was no thought behind any of these borders being drawn up. It was the naivety of the massive empires at the time,
right?
As they saw them as peasants.
Yeah, pure fucking hubris. Yeah. Pure hubris, bro. Pure.
Yeah, it happened. And look at Vietnam. They were in treaty during World War One. They were promised their independence, and then after Treaty of Versailles was handed over to the French, which that didn't work out too well for the French in Vietnam.
Right. Well, and then the 50s through the 60s with Dien Bien Phu, and then the Americans came in afterward to try and salvage something that might have just been a military-industrial complex. Let's test out all the guns thing too.
Yeah, that was happening when the French were driven out that time out of Vietnam, and then your own country decided to step in. I remember a famous French commander said to the American commander at the time is, all you're going to do is have a giant graveyard. It's just going to be the graveyard.
Right. And the last push in the Vietnam conflict was a massive loss for Vietnam, but for North Vietnam, but it wasn't a loss in numbers and things for the Americans. But the PR victory was massive, right?
Yeah.
So, all right.
Like, as I say, Vietnam was promised. A lot of countries were promised their independence during World War One. Like,
well,
as he was
but
saying,
those countries then didn't want to give up the access to the resources the way that they were getting them.
Oh
right?
yeah.
So
God, no empire. Even the German Empire was broken up, and their territory passed over to the British, the French,
right.
Some cases the Spanish.
They weren't really allowed to have a lot after World War One. Funny enough.
No, they weren't.
Here we go.
They were drawn with a ruler in an office in London and Paris. Straight lines do not belong on maps, but that is what the colonial powers gave the Middle East, and it is why it still burns today. In Palestine, Britain took over under the League of Nations mandate.
So Palestine as an entity has never had a ruler, a government. The Palestinians or the Palestinian lands, Palestine is a negative impact term that started in the Roman Empire, right? So they were the Palestinians, and it was everybody who lived in the area, right? Between World War I and World War II, if you were World War I in 1948, if you were a Jew in that land where the Ottomans controlled it beforehand, your passport said Palestinian because it was a Palestinian mandate, right?
Yeah.
So even one of the first prime ministers was asked about it in Israel, and she said, my passport used to say Palestine, right?
Yeah.
So the lines were drawn so poorly, and nobody was really given the appropriate, not so much independence. I guess that would be the right term for it, though, right?
Yeah. It was, as I said, and he was rightly there. A lot of these borders were drawn up in Paris, London. So they was drawn up and with no thought behind it whatsoever. None.
Well, it was, hey, let's put this box in here, and I'll help control this, and I'll get these resources, and then you can have those resources, and then we'll look to trade.
Even if you look at the way they drew up the map,
the lines are straight.
They're trying to split the resources. Not
well, just even terrain-wise, it's impossible for that, right? It's like, so if you go to Pakistan and their borders with other countries, right? Like those, they're floating borders, right? Because they try to make them a straight line, but it's not really a straight line thing, just based on the topography, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like even when India and Pakistan separated at that time.
Yep.
It's like they try to do the right thing, but the wrong way, if you know what I mean.
Right. The solution is bad, and both not Israel, but India and Pakistan are both nuclear countries as well. So, like, on the world stage, they can certainly make one hell of a splash if they get a case of the red ass. They can say, "Okay, like we're not playing anymore." You know, we have the capacity.
Very rarely you see India or Pakistan stepping into any major conflicts. The only time they ever got together against any sort of other nuclear power was Iran. They did warn Iran themselves about getting involved in nuclear weapons.
Right. Well,
in an also subtle way.
They're not going to rattle their sabers. If they're going to do a thing, they're just going to do a thing.
Well, no, when they step up to the podium and say something, they normally mean what they say.
Right, and there's a gravitas to it because everybody else is just rattling their sabers and making a lot of noise. But if they say it, they mean it. It's something bad will happen if you continue to push the envelope. And I really hope Iran doesn't try and really push this one because it will not turn out well for them at all.
No.
It was meant to prepare the region for independence. Instead, it became a British colony in all but name. In the 1930s and 40s, as anti-Semitism surged across Europe, under fascist rule, countless atrocities were committed against the Jewish populations. These Jewish refugees fled to Palestine in growing numbers. Tensions exploded between the growing Jewish population and the Arab majority. The Arabs revolted, Britain cracked down hard, and violence became common. And by the 1940s, Britain had lost control. In 1947, the UN had proposed a partition plan, divide Palestine into a Jewish and Arab state. The Jewish leadership accepted it, the Arab leadership rejected it.
Well, and the Arab leadership rejected it, even so far as failing to recognize Israel as a state, right? When they gained statehood, there was a bit of a kerfuffle. A bit of a tussle.
That's a
right. That's a mild way to put it. But functionally, all hell broke loose, right? Yeah. So, it seems to reason that if you fail to recognize a state that the rest of the world says, yes, these are their borders, they do exist, it just seems asinine on its face, right? The entire
I
world
think
tells you that this is a thing, it is a place, it exists. And when they tried to do this solution, a two-state solution that's tried multiple times, the Arabs every time say no. And then they say, death to the little Satan that is Israel and death to the big Satan that is the United States, right? Like they just double, triple, quintuple down on FU. And then we keep running into the situation where they want to find out. It just keeps happening, right?
Yeah. As I said, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I think after World War II, they were trying to do good intentions, but kind of naive of the politics of the land that they were trying to do it in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Here we go.
Seeing it as another in a long line of colonial impositions. In 1948, Britain withdrew. Israel declared independence and Arab armies invaded. Israel won and counterattacked, seizing even more land than the UN had proposed. Over 700,000 Palestinians were expelled from their homes. This is what Palestinians call Nekba, the catastrophe. Then came the 6 Days War in 1967. Israel captured the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. And this is where the occupation began. Today, Israel still controls the majority of those lands. And since then, Israel has built hundreds of settlements on the West Bank, homes, schools, roads. They now house over 600,000 Israelis. Most of the world sees them as illegal. Israel says it's their ancestral home. Palestine,
as well as international conventions saying that that's Israeli land. It is Israel.
It is.
Right. So you cannot occupy your own land. Right.
Yeah.
In 2005, all of the Israelites left. They left Gaza. They even took their dead because they didn't want their dead to be desecrated. Right. So since 2005, Gaza's been its own thing. You know what I'm saying?
It has been its own thing. And I think, as I said, all this can be traced back to the law of good intentions. Everyone's trying to do the right thing after World War One and especially after World War II. But I think the world didn't realize, or naively doesn't quite understand how the Middle East works.
Right.
To this day, you can even see pundits on different news channels getting the facts kind of right, but not fully, because they don't quite understand the history behind it. As such,
they could take a couple of hours out of their day and figure it out. Like, it's not that hard to get a basic understanding. I get that it's nuanced, right? Well, and the other one is the Palestinians should be granted their liberation. From 1948 to 1967, it was controlled by Egypt.
Yeah.
So at any point, Egypt could have said, hey, come on in. You know, and in 1968, in that 6 Days War, the Sinai Peninsula was taken by Israel, right? Yeah. And they gave it back. They did not want it. They did not want the headache. Here we go.
Palestinians see it as colonialization. There have been peace talks, uprisings, bombings, rocket attacks, ceasefires, and collapse after collapse. The two-state solution has been talked about for decades, but on the ground, the land for Palestinian state is shrinking by the year. This conflict isn't ancient, it's colonial. It's about borders drawn up by outsiders, promises made and broken, and two peoples who believe that land to be theirs.
It's true. Both those sets of people believe, right, for sure. But I think we run into an issue where the Palestinians, the ones who are currently considered Palestinians, not the larger group of that was considered that for the 31 years between 1917 and 1947, right? So, but they've never had a ruler. They've never had coinage, money. They've always been a part of another empire, that kind of thing, right?
And I think when they got their, as you said, when they got their independence from 2005 onwards, they struggled with being a country for a long time.
Right. There was
this status struggle.
Right. In 2005, when it was handed over, the people who controlled the space decided to destroy all of the greenhouses that were on many and many of the roofs there. That was like $100 million, $200 million industry of selling flowers to the world. Some of the most beautiful hothouse flowers on the planet, grown in a perfect environment, just destroyed. The group that was in charge in 2005 was ousted by Hamas in 2006, and there hasn't been another election that wasn't absolutely rigged. So Hamas has functionally been in control since 2006, right? That's 19 years.
Right.
And at year
19 years.
17, yeah.
And the situation that hasn't seemed to have improved
and that,
in
a
any
lot of
shape,
that has to do
form, or fashion
with UNRWA as well. We were watching that British gentleman talk about how UNRWA was undermined. If you saw the things that UNRWA was teaching the children in Gaza, you would be absolutely shocked. You can go look that up. In fact, I encourage you to go look up functionally the rubric or the syllabus for the kids from ages 5 till secondary school is completed.
But that comes down to NGOs going into just throwing money at a problem and not actually following up either.
Right, and it gives people really, really strange controls in places where they're not supposed to have it.
Because it's like the same thing happened here. A lot of borders are driven. There's a lot of outsiders trying to fix a problem that they don't quite understand.
Yeah, they're
like the UN stepping into a space, throw money at a problem, and trying to solve it that way without actually quite understanding the nuance of a region.
Well, and they're lied to by the NGOs. The NGOs say, "Hey, we can develop this and control it," and they don't. And they give these silly ass proposals. And there are a ton of things passed by the UN, and almost 2/3 to 3/4 of them are negative impact to Israel. When there are countries in the world that are doing absolutely horrific things, way, way worse in scale than what Israel's doing. They're just sanctioned.
Especially when you look at the way the UN handled the recent conflict in the Ukraine, you're kind of going, there's hundreds of thousands of people dying over there.
Right.
Far more than what's happening. I know what's happening.
And then Israel's picking up a sanction a month. Like, we're sanctioning Israel.
And I'm kind of going, what's the difference between Russia's aggression? And by the way, this is not just the only conflict that's going on in the world that the UN should be worried about. There's lots of conflicts across the African continent as well happening, where there's tens of thousands of people dying.
The destruction of the Uyghurs in China. There's
exactly
Tibet.
There's a list of other conflicts at current time going on across the world.
There are real bad things happening. There are Arabs dying in the Middle East by the hundreds of thousands in other countries, right?
Yeah.
And for all of this focus to be on the river to the sea, right? The River Jordan to the Mediterranean Sea, in that space seems hypocritical. And when they're sucking up in Israel sanction after sanction after sanction, why are we not looking at other places that are doing genocide, actual genocide per the term?
Yes.
Right? I don't know. It just seems silly.
As I say, I know a friend of mine who spent many, many decades living and working in a lot of parts of Africa. And as he said, it was interesting when he used to watch the news, everyone up in arms about some small conflict somewhere in the world, while he woke up every morning driving past literally bodies everywhere in Africa. He was going, because no one cared. You know what I mean? Didn't make any headlines.
Absolutely. Absolutely unjust.
On a positive note, also, Thomas, very, very helpful as always, has sent on some fantastic resources that will be included in this episode. I will put in the pinned comment down below for everyone to read.
Awesome.
So plenty fair juice. Thank you very much, Thomas, as always.
Thomas is the best.
Absolutely fantastic.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for Doubting Thomas and Patrick McCallum. I am Alex Johansson. We are the A&P Gents. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, help us beat the algorithm, and we will see you in the next one. We are out.